Can you dig it? Yes, I can. I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the December the 4th, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident, need help, got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word. KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair, having some auto issues, get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. Yes, we're going to put off to the side the Packers winning and the Rams having a 4-hour enjoyment and pleasure of being in the playoff picture, or actually in the playoffs yesterday. The season's obviously not over, but the Rams are doing exactly what we wanted them to do, right? I'm gonna be a little bold here. They're doing exactly what I said they'd do, right? I was remiss. I was angry that they weren't better than 3-6. I did predict they'd be 3-6, and then they would pick up fire on the backside of the schedule. But this team is better than we thought it would be. The only thing that's held it back is the offense. And then when you see it, you do get kind of excited, right? You are reminded of why the Rams made the move for Matthew Stafford and why he is considered an elite quarterback. So what we're going to do is we're going to just look at about, everyone's talked about it. You've seen the stats and everything. I'm going to hit on some points here from the course of the game, and we'll go from there. Yes, Bill, I'm happy to talk about our kicker. It is nervous time at the Forum, as Chick Hearn used to say, when it comes to our kicker. But we'll get to that. The best thing about yesterday, with an older quarterback turning back the clock against the Rams, I'm watching that game yesterday, and I'm seeing Mike Phipps wearing number 15, and I'm seeing Greg Pruitt wearing number 34, and I'm seeing the Rams down 7-0. Now, Greg Pruitt was a great player. Mike Phipps wasn't. I had an inflated view of Mike Phipps because my first year as an NFL fan was in the middle of the 72 season, and the Browns went 10-4, and Mike Phipps was the starting quarterback on that team. Bill Nelson was the backup. And watching those uniforms that the Browns wore yesterday and seeing Joe Flacco play, and Joe Flacco played it pretty well, right? And the best part about watching that game, though, was to see the Rams win another close game. Yes, it ended 36-19, but up until the crunch time there in the last few minutes of the fourth quarter, it was a 20-19 game. And a young team, the Rams, again, a young team like it did against Seattle 2 weeks ago, found a way to win. They didn't collapse. They didn't give up that big play. They didn't have a huge breakdown somewhere. The offensive line kept playing. They kept moving the ball. They stayed aggressive. They did a lot of good stuff. You'd like to see a better pass rush, but a young team winning close games now, that's just awesome. And while you got to make Baltimore a favorite, and we're going to get to Baltimore probably on Wednesday, but you got to make Baltimore a favorite. But this Rams team is not going to be a pushover. That you have to come to play. You have to come to play football to beat the Rams, because this is a young team that is slowly learning how not to beat itself. That's what I see. That's what I see. I welcome your thoughts. And of course, when we get towards the break, we'll get to the questions. The Stafford to Nakua scoring pass, and I've heard others talk about this, might be one of the most aesthetically pleasing moments I've ever had as a Rams fan, right? It was just beautiful. It was like Billy Waddy against Dallas in the 79 playoffs. Just one of these moments where your jaw drops, and it's just beautiful. And this one was perfect, right? You got Stafford, who everyone wanted to write off, right? You got Nakua, who was a 5th rounder. I should be wearing my puka shells right now, and I forgot to put them on. You got Nakua, a 5th rounder. You got this read at the line of scrimmage where Stafford, in his experience, he sees something and he changes, moves the things around. You got this perfect route run by a 5th round wide receiver. You have this perfect anticipatory throw from a quarterback who is taking a beating and doesn't have a perfect thumb. And then you got Nakua flashing more speed than most of us thought he had. It was just a stunning play. We just kind of, our mouths dropped in the Ram cave yesterday. We saw it and we were blown away. We were just blown away. It was just one of the most perfect plays I've ever seen as a Rams fan. And I know I've seen more. There was a lot during the Greatest Show on Turf years. There was a lot, but it was beautiful. It was really, that was one of the things that pulled me out. The play of the game that Sean McVay said, I like the John Johnson pick too, but let's be honest. The first time Joe Flacco looked like a 38 or a 39-year-old quarterback yesterday was on that pick. He has a better arm than that duck he put up there, and he put up a duck. And I was waiting for that all day, thinking that at some point someone's going to get behind Witherspoon or possibly Kendrick. And it was a duck he threw up, and good for John Johnson, who played a really good game. Good for him to get that pick against the Browns, right, after everything that's happened. I was also surprised that both quarterbacks were upright the whole game, right? Neither team got to the other team's quarterbacks. The Browns have a great interior line. They got the center and they got 2 guards. Their left tackle, right tackle, their starters are gone, and so they're running backups there. Rams couldn't take advantage of it. And then, of course, the Rams' offensive line is susceptible to an elite pass rusher, but their elite pass rusher, Myles Garrett, he was pretty winged. He was one wing was pretty bad there, so they weren't going to get too much out of him. He played 56 snaps, but he wasn't a factor at all. And then, Zadarius Smith, I think, is showing some age because he's not giving the Browns, I think, what they were hoping. The one thing that bugged me about that Rams pass rush, though, was another team or even Cleveland with a healthy Amari Cooper. That would have spelled trouble for the Rams, right? That Amari Cooper one had the banged up ribs, and then I think they said it was a head injury reason he left the game. That could have spelled trouble because Flacco was operating from a clean pocket most of the day, and that's pretty much what Flacco needs. We know that, and so again, everything's falling together for the Rams. Byron Young feels like he's hit a wall. If you watch him, he's not getting to the quarterback like he was. He's not applying the pressure like he was. And, again, maybe he's just got to get a breather. Maybe he just needs to collect himself. He's playing in the NFL now. He's been good up to now. But he was bad on the edge, right? He was bad on the edge. You could see it. On the other hand, Kobe Turner played 37 snaps. I might have to double check that. That must be the most snaps he's played. And he delivered another sack. A sack and a half. I don't know how they're grading him and Donald's safety, but Kobe Turner is really playing great ball for the Rams. Again, I throw this out at you. 3rd round, 91st pick overall. 3rd round, 91st pick overall. That's awesome. That's awesome. The Rams are getting that production. The Rams offensive line did a solid job. Myles Garrett was obviously banged up. It's obvious, but he was out there on 56 snaps. And what did they say? Hey, if you're going to go out there to play, you're going out there to play. And sorry, who cares if you're hurt? Who really cared about the Rams offensive line last year, right? A lot of edge rushers got fat last year playing against the Rams and racking up their sack totals. No one cared then. No one cares now for the Browns. But I give Garrett credit going out there and playing 56 snaps. It's also the reason, Kevin Dotson's been graded out as the best right guard in football this year. Havenstein's a beast on the run, and the Rams are deadly running right behind those 2 guys. But if you noticed yesterday, the Rams ran left more than they did right, and I got to believe that was probably game plan to keep Garrett occupied. Uh, they did run right a few times, but it was mostly left that they ran, and they did a solid job. Stafford was clean all day, and of course, if you look at PFF again, PFF is a starting point. Pro Football Focus. It's not the end all. You shouldn't trust PFF over what your eyes tell you. The offensive line and pass protection graded out very, just a little above average according to PFF. And Avila and Dotson didn't grade out well at all, as below average against the run. The Rams were able to run the ball yesterday. We saw them run the ball yesterday. If the offensive line can grade out this bad every week, I'll take it, right? I'll take it. So just something to think about, because everyone's going to run to the PFF grades and say, well, Avila was terrible, or Dotson had his worst day. Did it really look like anybody on that offensive line for the Rams yesterday had their worst day? I didn't think so. Even Jordan Elliott played for the Browns, and he had a bad ankle. And so their players were out there. They had enough players out there. It was a respectable team that they played. Also, Tutu Atwell. People are talking about Tutu Atwell. Atwell got in on 24 snaps. He had another pass interference call, and he had one catch. Demarcus Robinson got 38. I don't think it's because Demarcus Robinson is better than Tutu Atwell. I would rather have Atwell as the receiver and Robinson as the blocker. And it's not that Atwell can't block. I agree with that. He does his job, but Robinson is better at it. And it's always been the case with Ram receivers. Let's go back to the Robert Woods days, back to those early McVay teams. The Rams wide receivers are required to block. And if you're going to play, you're going to block. And wanting to reestablish the running game, that's why Robinson is in there. But if you're going to have Robinson in the game, you have to target him, or everyone's going to know what you're going to do. And Robinson, to his credit, also catches the ball really well. I wasn't real thrilled about Robinson until I went out to the practice this year and saw him make some catches. I was right there with my brother, and I'm going, wow, this guy's better than I thought. And then you couple the fact all the other things he does. That was great. Also, this was the third straight game the Rams threw the ball deep to Atwell, right? There was a whole stretch of games there. They weren't stretching the field with him, but they're stretching the field. And whether it's incomplete or we're getting pass interference penalties, the Rams are utilizing Atwell's depth or speed deep, and that adds to the depth of the team. And it's exactly what they need to do. The receiving corps is really coming around nicely, right? Everyone stays healthy, provided, right? But Nakua, yes, he's receiver number one. I was sitting next to Dwayne Barker from Mid-Valley Sports yesterday, and I looked at him and I said, he's receiver number one. And then you got Cooper Kupp, and then you're going between Robinson and Atwell, and each bring a little something different. That's a nice foursome to send out there onto that field. And so that bodes well for the Rams. That really bodes well. And I love seeing the return of the jet sweeps. Very old school McVay running that jet sweep with Puka Nacua was marvelous, right? It's like, where's this thing been? I get not wanting to run it with Cooper Kupp, right? We got to save Cooper Kupp for pass catching. But you run the younger guy. And I just want to know, I question, I'm not saying PFF is bad. I'm not slamming PFF. I'm just saying take it with a grain of salt, use it as a starting point. But also when you look at your draft evaluations, can somebody explain to me, and I wish I used to have contact with some, but I don't right now. Can an NFL scout tell me why Puka Nacua dropped to the 5th round? Because he's got more speed than people think. He's got shoulders, so he can be physical. That was the other thing. I think it was Mark Sanchez pointed it out yesterday. Did you ever notice how Nacua finishes the runs? When he catches the ball and turns upfield, he lowers those shoulders and he delivers a hit before taking one. Just a marvelous thing. I don't like the Rams running wide on those pitch outs, the little kind of a modified version of student body right. You see Stafford take the ball and kind of overhand pitch out. I'm just not big on running wide all the time in the NFL unless it's a jet sweep because the athletes are so great. But Kyren Williams does have the speed that the other Rams backs, even Cam Akers, probably no one since Gurley has to do that. So I guess that's why they run it. They ran a lot right and they ran a lot of it, some of it left yesterday. but I prefer the quick hitters and the gaps. Use Dotson and Havenstein. And then, Royce Freeman only played 4 snaps. I like Royce Freeman. I love Kyrene Williams, but I want Kyrene Williams fresh. And so I'd like to see Royce Freeman get a few more snaps just to keep Kyrene Williams fresh. Kobe Durant is someone to keep an eye on right now. For the second game, he played limited snaps. He only played 20 snaps yesterday. 18 of them were at the slot corner. And if you notice, Russ Yeast was on the field a lot, and that's where Russ Yeast played. Quentin Lake had been playing that star slot position, and Russ Yeast played 32 defensive snaps yesterday. 26 of them were in the slot, and Yeast played well as Kendrick and Witherspoon. So it's obvious Durant, maybe with that shoulder, is still healing. But I like these. I'm starting to like these corners. Are we slowly? Is this the third consecutive game where Kendrick has impressed other people? I think those of us that are Rams fans know that Kendrick had ability, but I think other people are starting to know or see, yeah, the kid's got some ability to play in this league. And then Witherspoon's all gravy, right? I don't think anyone expected what we're getting from Witherspoon. We like Kobe Durant. We want him to stay healthy. We got to love our safeties, right? We do like Quentin Lake, who's on the IR right now at the hamstring. The Rams do like Russ Yeast. He's getting playing time and he's contributing. And you got to love John Johnson, who you got to believe he'll come back next year, because John Johnson's young and he's already gotten his big contract. And I don't know who's going to give him another big one. And so that might not mean good stuff for Jordan Fuller. But then again, the Rams don't re-sign those guys after their first contract. Jordan Fuller will leave and then come back in 2026. But those guys are playing well. And then the part I thought was really laughable was, remember how bad Ernest Jones graded out last week? He was the second or the worst Rams player graded out. This week, he was the second best defensive player grade-wise on the Rams team. So again, a couple of last points I want to make here. Maybe it's time to have a talk about Tyler Higbee, right? He never appears on the injured list, right? But something's wrong with that hand, and he did get a concussion this week. And that's what makes me think, has anyone called Zach Ertz now? Did Zach Ertz sign? Did anyone hear anything about Zach Ertz yet? I'll take correction. But Bryson Hopkins was inactive again. His days are numbered as a Ram. Hunter Long and Davis Allen are playing, but blocking. Neither Hunter Long or Davis Allen had a target yesterday. The Rams are going to need some help at tight end going forward. And if Hunter Long and Davis Allen aren't ready to do it, and Higbee is all banged up, if Zach Ertz is available, the Rams need to think about it. And I'd also say this before they make a move on Bryson Hopkins. Maybe Hopkins isn't the blocker that Long and Allen both are, but we know Bryson Hopkins can catch the ball. We've seen him. I think we saw it in that game that's called the Super Bowl. And maybe we need to rethink Bryson Hopkins, or, like I said, if he's available, Zach Ertz. He probably wants to go to a more contending team than the Rams, though. Rams are 6-6, and in the playoff conversation. But okay, I want to make that one point also. The Rams kicker, right? Luke Havrizik, right? Yeah, he makes me nervous, right? He makes all of us nervous. I don't know where the Rams are going to go to get a kicker at this point, but sometimes you just don't know. Dustin Hopkins was perfect until yesterday for the Browns, right? He was perfect till yesterday. He had some big kicks for the Chargers last year. You just don't know. I guess Matt Gay doesn't grow on trees, right? And I was with Dwayne Barker from Mid-Valley Sports yesterday, and he was the one that told me, he says, maybe the Rams should have kicked in that 3-year $21 million deal for Matt Gay. And you look at it and you think, man, Matt Gay would have been the difference in the Pittsburgh game, wouldn't he? Matt Gay could be the difference between now and the end of the year. But I think the Rams are going to ride with this kid, and we'll see how far we go. But yeah, I can see them looking at somebody in the 5th round, 6th round next year in the draft. Hey, they've got talent. They spot talent. We got Ethan Evans as a punter. The Rams will be able to figure this out. And hopefully it just doesn't cost us anything too much this year. Okay, Rams are 6-6 and in the playoff conversation. And this is what you want, what we'd like, what I think we all wanted, right? But here's something, there's a reality here. That Green Bay win last night hurt. And Green Bay's schedule is a cakewalk, right? They are getting the Sisters of Mercy, I use some other analogies there. They're not playing anybody tough, right? I think they might be playing UCLA, that USC defense. They're going to do well until maybe they get to the Lions. But that position, that playoff spot, the Packers look, that win in that loss to the Rams, that loss by the Rams in Week 9 is just a killer. But then you got the Vikings, and it's going to be how the Vikings play going down the stretch. The Rams could end up this season 9-8. Right now, they're in a spot right now where 9-8 is a very realistic thing. Not wishing anything to existence. You lose next week, you go 6-7. But then you get the Saints, you get the Texans, and you get the Giants on New Year's Eve. You could be 9-7 going into Green Bay. And then you probably need to be hoping somebody loses here, somebody loses there. Not going into Green Bay, going into Frisco in Week 18. And so the Rams could actually end the season 9-8, and get bit in the butt because of that Packer game and miss the playoffs. But to go 9-8 is a very real possibility, and it's a great season. And I remember when we were talking back in the summer, is we were saying, they're 8 wins. It was the baseline. I think we thought 9 wins, and we thought something special could happen. They can win 10 games. And they've already proven with the games they've given away that they could have been a 10-game winning season. But to be in the conversation in the playoffs, for the playoffs, with everything that was projected this year, what a great season the Rams are having. And if the Rams do make it to the playoffs, it's all gravy. It is all gravy. And here's the thing that's scary for the rest of the league. Heading into 2024, the Rams have a full draft class. That means 1 through 6, and they got all those other assorted comp picks coming, right? And then they got a load of dough to spend under the cap, and hopefully a still healthy Stafford. And if all that stuff falls into place, which it looks like two of those 3 are already there, this puts this team in fear of the Lord mode. Everyone's going to have the fear of the Rams, right? Going into next year, because that window will be open. You've got a young team now that is learning how to win close games. They are going to be more experienced and more ready to play next year. I'm not writing off this year. I do want a miracle, but let's just, we'll keep it in perspective here. I do want a miracle. Hey, miracles can happen. And I do have something I want to say about Frisco in a minute. NFC playoff picture, we said it. Green Bay 6-6, Minnesota 6-6, Green Bay 6-6. They got the spots. Rams are 6-6, Seattle 6-6. But Seattle's essentially a game or 2 behind because they lost both games to the Rams. Saints are 5-7. Derek Carr's banged up. Jameis Winston's playing. They're toast. Tampa Bay's 5-7. They can sting you, but everyone's hurt. And then you got Texans, Giants, and Bears. All right, we know where that's at. Around the NFL and other places, first looking at the other places, all I can tell you when we talk about the college football playoff is the goal and the reason for putting Alabama in that game was easy. It was they need Alabama in that game because the NCAA needs to make sure Michigan doesn't win the national title. That's my conspiracy thought. I don't mind it if they say that Alabama's in there because they're the SEC and they have more revenue, more of a draw, more of this, more of that. But I think it's garbage to say you didn't take Florida State because their quarterback is out. If J.J. McCarthy was out, would Michigan not get in? Right? And remember Alabama, they needed a miracle to beat Auburn, which lost at home the week before to New Mexico State. My hope is Michigan just crushes Alabama, and then of course we'll see the rest play out. I'm rooting for Washington against Texas. Don't hate Texas as much. I do kind of like Washington. Jordan Love, I mentioned that. This was just in my notes that I kept making. Jordan Love is still beating the Rams. He's still hurting the Rams. And up until I saw the Valdez-Scanling mugging last night, I thought the worst call of the day was the holding on Demarcus Robinson on Puka Nakua's 45-yard jet sweep. Didn't that drive you crazy? That one drove me crazy. And then getting the Steeler fan Rob in Missouri, who talks trash talks trash, and then tries to sound like he's understanding of where his team is. He's a Steeler fan. I don't know how you lose to Arizona at home, right? Even if you have Mitch Trubisky on the roster, and how can you call yourself a playoff contender? I'll say this: Flacco can keep the Browns afloat. Indy is out of its mind right now. Again, glad we played Indy when we played them. I wouldn't want to play them now. And then you got Houston. Wow, right? Houston. I think CJ Stroud is Houston's biggest hero since Jonathan E., right? I'd like to remind over the summer that I did say Houston wouldn't be bad, but I in no way thought they would be this good. And Jacksonville tonight should put Cincy out of its misery. I think it's going to be a real interesting postseason, and I think Baltimore does have a shot now because Patrick Mahomes has nobody to throw the ball to. They're vulnerable. Everyone on their defense is going down right now. So the Chiefs are in trouble. Steelers don't have a quarterback. Bengals don't have a quarterback. Browns, may have the second best quarterback in the AFC North, believe it or not. And Buffalo's in trouble. So you could have a postseason where there is no Buffalo and there is no Pittsburgh. And I don't think anybody thought that was possible at the start of the year. And then getting to Frisco. There's something about Frisco. I got to say, I'm happy Frisco's peaking right now. Let them peak. Let them be very full of themselves. But there's something about Frisco. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I feel like the Rams have nothing to lose. There's something about Frisco that doesn't scare me. Does anyone feel that way? They just don't scare me because we know how vulnerable they are. If Trent Williams goes down, they're toast. Deebo Samuel's going to get a shot to the ribs or the shoulder because they play so physical. And the other part about Frisco is I don't know what Kyle Shanahan's thinking. How do you keep your players in a game that you're up 42-19 or 16 or whatever it was yesterday? We see this all season where they're running Christian McCaffrey to keep some record going. Hey, that's going to bite you. At some point, those guys, you're susceptible. You're Frisco. Guys go down all the time. And I just get the feeling by the time the Rams get there in week 18, everything could be decided for Frisco. And maybe they don't want to play everybody because maybe they've locked up the number 1 seed. Or maybe because the 49ers are just going to overlook the Rams. And this young Rams team is too young to know what it doesn't know. And I think they can go in there and surprise them. That Ram team that lost him at the beginning of the year, what was that, 30-23? Was that what the score was, 30-23? That was the young Ram team. This is an experienced young Ram team, been through some battles and some wars and has some scar tissue, ready to go into Candlestick or Levi week 18. And I don't know. Frisco just doesn't scare me. I think someone's going to upset Frisco's apple cart, and they are going to be having a hard time in the Bay Area. All right, getting to the back half of the show here. Last thing I want to add, college football, the transfer portal is amazing. Look who's entered in. Kyle McCord, the Ohio State quarterback. Dylan Gabriel, again. It says Dylan Gabriel of Oklahoma has entered the transfer portal again. That guy's played everywhere but USC. Dante Moore, UCLA, Cameron Ward, Washington State, Will Howard, the Kansas guy. And they said, I saw a report that said Lincoln Riley would be flying out to Kansas to meet with Will Howard. My only problem with Will Howard is staying healthy, but that's pretty interesting. Riley Leonard, Duke, we talked about that. DJ Uiagalelei out of Oregon State. I understand why he'd want to leave. Jonathan Smith is gone, and maybe he wants to go to Michigan State. Grayson McCall, Coastal Carolina, and Texas A&M's Walter Nolan. Last I saw, maybe it's confirmed, he's slated for USC. My only thing about players and stuff is you declare for the transfer portal. I don't know. I don't think there's an official rule. I had some experts contact me today. There's no official rule. It's coach's discretion that if Oklahoma's playing in a bowl game, and they are, that Dylan Gabriel, even though he's entered the transfer portal, could still play. That seems a little bit crazy to me. Okay, I'm Joe Terosian, and I was a sports writer for 21 years, and now I do RamView, and I write books, and that sustains me in my day job. I pastor a church in Burbank, a small church called Burbank Faith Nazarene, and you can find us right here on Burbank Faith Virtual. And so I get to do RamView thanks to our sponsors at Kistler Law. And you can check out my books on Amazon. Just type in my name. I've written 2 high school football novels. They've been well received. And I encourage you to buy my whole collection because, yeah, my kids are growing up and they don't need a new pair of shoes. But Joe T might need a new mic pretty soon. And so I'd appreciate it if you can get me a new mic, buy some books. And I was one of the founding members of Mid-Valley Sports. I don't work with them anymore. Close to those guys still. Let's see what questions we have out there. Yeah, Bill, I think we talked about it real quick there. I mentioned it was, I think the Rams are going to have to ride this guy, Luke, until the end. It's nervous time, right? It's nervous time every time he goes out there to kick, all right? And so that one, I hope it works out. Tim Burns, we may have a wide receiver in Puka with 1,400-yard rookie season. Yeah. And Kyrene looks for real. Isn't that amazing? The Rams have 2 new weapons, right? Puka Nacua and Kyrene Williams, guys that nobody was counting on when we were talking about the pillars. Stafford, Kupp, and Donald, they were the pillars, but those other two guys are becoming pillars. That's pretty interesting. Matt Ariza is available as a punter, but kicked 50 of 68 field goals. San Diego State guy, Mr. Burns, pushing for your San Diego State alum. Hey, I don't know. Is he a kicker? Is he really going to be a kicker in the NFL? I'm not moving off Ethan Evans, man. Ethan Evans is our guy. I'm not moving off of him. If Ariza could really, really kick, is he like a Don Cockcroft, Dennis Partee, double duty kind of guy? Bring him in to kick. If you say so, but it can get really rough on people here. You know how hard we are on Steeler fan Rob. Bill, what is your theory on why the Rams defense is giving up TDs on the opening drive? Theory. My belief is they're getting settled in. No film on Flacco with the Browns, right? But that doesn't excuse other performances like the Cardinal game that happened with Kyler Murray. I just think it's a case of they get settled in, and then again, that touchdown, absolutely blown coverage by the defense that I was going to say Greg Pruitt scored yesterday. But yeah, hopefully they're going to tighten that up. And here's the good news. Bill, is they do tighten it up, don't they? They have tightened it up, right? When Kyler Murray scored and made it 7-6, and then there was the penalty, and then they got the 8-7 lead briefly last week. You're thinking, is this what's going to be like for the rest of the game? And it wasn't. What bothered me a little bit yesterday was just, they did a great job for the Browns. They ran behind those core, their 2 guards and a center, and they ran behind them and they moved the ball and they let Flacco pick his spots. We put no pressure on him. The Rams did a good job, but we saw what the formula was. The Rams are still going to be vulnerable to the run. I like Kobe Turner, but he's light. I like Aaron Donald, of course, but we know he's light. And Bobby Brown played a good game, but we need more Bobby Brown, huh? We need some more of that Bubba inside the interior. So I love it when you see the adjustment. It happens early, but then you see the adjustment, and that's what we got to see. Bill, my perfect play was Jim Everett. Oh, preach. I talked about at the beginning of the show for anyone that clicked on later. I said the Matthew Stafford to Puka Nacua might have been one of the most aesthetically pleasing plays of my entire life watching the Rams. It was just beautiful. And listener Bill here says it was Jim Everett going to flipper and sudden death against the Giants in the 89 playoffs. And you know what, man? You're absolutely, that was an iconic moment. And it gets lost because that was down the stretch of the Rams' last great run in Los Angeles before they ruined the team and moved to St. Louis. But that was a beautiful moment. I remember, believe it or not, admitting it, didn't see it live, recorded the game, went to church because our belief was if our routine was church, that you couldn't break your routine to watch the game or you jinx the Rams. A little bit of the subject of my next book. And so what was it? We got back, didn't listen to anybody talk, didn't listen to the radio, went to my friend's house, and we saw the end of that game, and we were on pins and needles. Steeler fan Rob, Steelers are still the 5th seed. Yeah, hey, that's great. You got a cruddy schedule, and you got Mitch Trubisky. You got this in one hand and this in the other. What are you going to do? Tim Powers, former 49er kicker. Is that Robbie Gould? Man, you'd think if Robbie Gould was available at this point, past the trading deadline, his cost would be minimal. And you're right. Why wouldn't we think Robbie Gould? There must be some other extenuating thing going on with him. Maybe he just hates the Rams. I don't know, but you would think, right? You would think that's a good thought there, Mr. Powers. Because I think what's going to happen is the Rams are going to run off. The Rams could be 9-7 going into Frisco with Luke Haversick as the kicker, and it might come down to a field goal on whether or not the Rams win that game or something, or it's gonna bite us, right? So it is, like Chickering said, it's nervous time at the Forum. Rams update: Higbee concussion, but he's holding his hand. Durant saw limited action. We talked about his shoulder. And again, I'd like to see a little more Royce Freeman to keep Kyren Williams fresh. We'll start talking about Baltimore on Wednesday, and right now I'm trying to unearth anything and everything I can in the Ram Cave to convince me that the Rams have a chance next week. And the truth is, I think they do. I think it's a narrow window, but I think they do. We're heading into bowl season. Michigan beat Iowa. Georgia lost to Alabama. Washington beat Oregon. I thought Oregon had that game, and Texas beat Oklahoma State, and that game wasn't even close. And we talked about already what happened with Florida State. It's bowl season. I'm not going to go over every bowl game. UCLA is playing Boise State. That one's interesting. Former Azusa Pacific assistant when Azusa Pacific was playing D2 football, Spencer Danielson, is now the new head coach at Boise State. That'll be interesting to see. Texas Tech is at Cal in their bowl game. I forget the name of their bowl game. The couple of them are interesting to me here. I wanted to go down the list. Louisville versus USC in the Holiday Bowl. That's December 27th. And that one is interesting. NC State and Kansas State in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I don't know why you just can't call something the Cherry Bowl anymore, but you got the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Oklahoma, Arizona in the Oklahoma Bowl. That's another one that is not the Oklahoma Bowl. What is that? Which one is that? I don't know. They're playing each other in a bowl game. I'm looking forward to that one. Oregon State and Notre Dame in the Sun Bowl. Yeah, there's some really interesting games there, and we'll get to it as the month wears on. As we come up to the 37-minute mark, we're looking at back at the NFL. The Bills, Ravens, Bears, Vikings, and Raiders and Giants were off this week. Seahawks, Cowboys, we took the Cowboys. That Cowboys won 41-35. Broncos, Texans, we took the Broncos. But the Texans won 22-17. CJ Stroud, man. Unfortunately, they lost Tank Dell, and that'll be interesting. Chargers, Patriots, 6-0. This game was so bad that when I stayed up to watch one of the highlight shows, they didn't even show highlights from this game. Again, really? You're going to run Belichick back? You're going to run Belichick back? You got to send him to the farm, man. Farm, time for him to go, right? Maybe Brandon Staley can go with him. Lions, Saints. That was a pretty good shootout. Then Derek Carr gets hurt. Lions pulled that out. Good for the Lions. We want the Lions to win. We don't want the Lions doing a little stumble here and then becoming a wild card team. That would hurt the Rams. Falcons, Jets. We were rooting for the Jets. Falcons won. They're down to Trevor Siemian in New York. It's brutal. Next thing you know, it's going to be Al Woodall. Cardinals, Steelers, 24-10 on the road. I can't for the life of me. Here's the thing that was interesting about that game for the Cardinals. James Conner carried the ball 5 times against the Rams, and he's breaking tackles, and he's always breaking tackles against the Rams. They go back to Pittsburgh, where James Conner played, right? And he carries the ball 25 times for 105 yards. Thank you, Jonathan Gannon, for not pounding James Conner 25 times against the Rams last week, but saving it for the Steelers. I think the Steelers are now, 7-5? Colts, Indy, man, Shane Steichen, Coach of the Year. Gardner Minshew's been outstanding. I mean, for what Gardner Minshew could do. I think the Colts could sneak into the playoffs. Dolphins, Texans, it's over in D.C. If you think a president that's got 2 terms and heads into December after the election is a lame duck, take a look at the Texans. They're pretty bad, 45-15. Buccaneers, Panthers. Buccaneers pulled out the win. They've got 5 wins. They're a dangerous team. Rams don't have to play them, but they're a dangerous team. Browns, Rams, we talked about that. Eagles, 49ers. Yeah, that wasn't a good look for the Eagles at all. Frisco looked great, and I want Frisco to keep playing, and I want them to get so over their skis and so excited about everything that I want them to overlook the Rams, and I want the Rams to come in Week 18 and just stick them. Okay, last night, Chiefs-Packers. Patrick Mahomes has nobody to throw the ball to, flat out. Nobody to throw the ball to. And, Valdez-Scantling was mugged. It was a terrible late hit call on Mahomes. Yeah, the NFL needs to get its butt in gear. They need to get their butt in gear. Sooner or later, it's going to affect a Super Bowl. And in one sense, as long as it doesn't involve the Rams or works in the Rams' favor, I don't care. And then tonight, Bengals-Jaguars. Bengals should be put out of their misery this season by the Jaguars and fall to 5-7. I was 8-4 this week. Hopefully, I'll be 9-4 before it's over. That means we 129-64 on the season. Okay, on this date in Rams history, I've hit the 40-minute mark, guys. I've gone a little long. My apologies. On this date, the Rams waived punter Dale Hatcher. Dale Hatcher had been a third-round, 77th overall pick in '85 out of Clemson. And he made Pro Bowl and was All-Pro his rookie year. And then he was very pedestrian after that. He left the team in 90, came back in 91. And then on this day, he was waived, released the next day. Barry Helton was signed to replace him. Also interesting, on this day in 2016, it was announced that Jeff Fisher on December 4th, 2016, had re-signed or signed an extension of a 2-year contract with the Rams. Now, Fisher came out and said that the agreement was made back in August and it was signed back in August. It just leaked out on December 4th. That was his argument. But it was so funny is 8 days later, I think it was after the loss to the Falcons, he was fired. And so wanted to get that one out there. Now, tomorrow is December the 5th, okay? Tomorrow is December the 5th, and it is Bill Simpson's birthday. And I thought it would be cool to remember Bill Simpson. Bill Simpson turns 72 tomorrow. He was a second-round, 50th overall pick in 1974 out of Michigan State by the Rams. He played free safety. If you remember how the Rams season ended in 73, Steve Priest and Dave Elmendorf were the safeties. Priest was playing more free safety, Elmendorf strong safety. And that game against the Cowboys, Rams had rallied all the way back. They were down 17-0. They're trailing 17-16 in the fourth. And then there's this play where Staubach throws the ball to young Drew Pearson, and Priest has inside leverage, and he's supposed to provide the help to Eddie McMillan. But instead of putting the hit on Drew Pearson, he went for the interception. He missed it. Him and McMillan, I believe, collide, and Drew Pearson goes to the house for basically what ices the game. They add a field goal later, but it's 27-16 Cowboys. Well, Chuck Knox wasn't going to have any of that. Used the Rams' second-round pick in 74. After drafting Capoletti, the Rams drafted Bill Simpson out of Michigan State. He was a starter at free safety from the get-go for 5 seasons, from 74 through 78. Never made a Pro Bowl team or anything, but anybody that saw Bill Simpson play knew he was a great player. He had his memorable moment. He had the pick 6 against the Cardinals in the 75 playoffs, blocked punts. He was a great player, but he had bad knees. And he was done by the end of the 78 season. I think they listed him as second-team All-Pro in 78. I'm not sure, but we'll look at that. 72 games for the Rams, started 62, 22 picks. And then he wasn't playing in 79 because he had a bad knee. And then in 80, he wasn't going to play until he hooked up with we had a Charger game with the Bills. And he ended up being talked into coming back by Chuck Knox. And the Rams got a 6th-round pick for him in 1983 for him going back. Now, Simpson ended up playing 3 years in Buffalo. He started all 36 games. He picked off 12 passes in those 3 years. He had a nice second act in Buffalo before retiring at the end of the 1982 season. Look at old Ram highlights. He has the red beard, red hair. He wore number 48. The Rams got that 6th-round pick for Simpson, and then flipped it with a 3rd to the New York Giants for a guy named Gary Jeter, who was pretty standout for the Rams through the middle part of the 1980s. Just thought we'd get that out there today. And I think that could be it. Was it? All right. I want to thank you guys for clicking on. Everybody, Simpson returned to pick against the Cardinals in the playoffs. Wow, you got that out before I did. I didn't see the question, Mr. Powers. Thank you. or your post there, Mr. Powers. Yes, he did. You were at that game. Weren't you at that game, Mr. Powers? I watched it up in Santa Clara at my dad's house. I was in heaven that day because Jack Youngblood had a pick 6 too. Jackson went deep. Jaworski was the quarterback. McCutcheon ran for 202 yards. Yeah, that was Ram heaven. Okay, so we're going to let you go. Thank you guys for clicking on. Again, thank you to our sponsors, Kistler Law. We are going to post this all around the place. Every time, if you could hit a like button, a subscribe button, or tell your friends to subscribe, tell them about us, we would greatly appreciate it. Everything here is on an upswing. We could use the help on Spotify. Numbers are a little low on Spotify. They're picking up slightly, but we thought we would have more traction there than here. So thank you so much for clicking on. And we are going to go, and we will see you on Wednesday. God bless. Take care. Go Rams.